up by the force of culture, in workshops, in an attempt to pave the way for them to communicate and to open up to one another, practicing on predefining international workshops with topics defined by their docents. It was all very simple. So simple that it is not easy sometimes to explain. So here is my first consideration. The person addressing you is not an academic, but simply a man living and working in this international context, who has implemented certain principles and discovered certain realities, which is exactly what Andrzej Tomaszewski was hoping to see, dialogue between theory and practice. My second consideration and new development, it was precisely in hosting these young people, in meeting them at the start of this intercultural adventure for them, then meeting them again at the end of the week and seeing the results of their work, dining with them and seeing their tears. That I saw the light. That was the first moment that the hotelier Paul Bendian understood what the word hospitality means, a meaning with which he had been totally unfamiliar up until that moment. In this view, hospitality had meant the smile rate in the hotel, the level of room service, the quality of the breakfast, creative comfort, and so on. Thus, ultimately, it was related to the bill that the hotel guest was going to pay. I had never associated the hospitality with tears, with the emotional communication that these young people experienced on the first day, first week outside the confines of their home cities, never mind their home countries. Can you imagine? It was almost traumatic. My third consideration, from that moment on, I began to link the concept of hospitality to emotion. And even though I am a hotelier, I have begun to feel a certain repulsion for the word tourism, which is universally associated with consumer-related services, creative comforts, and so on, but not with hospitality, or not enough. My fourth consideration, few public administrations have paid attention to tourism as it has developed over time, because tourism was inevitably good news. It was something positive for their area, and so it was to discuss how to promote it and not how to manage it. The term management was instead used by the tourist industry, which in an ununderstandable view to improving services for customers, meeting the needs of different cultures, of simplification for all participants, the aspect of safety, hygiene, all for the development of market and product, then the businesses industrializing the system, reducing cost by standardizing the various stages of the journey and services to travel. The market is flourishing. Historic centers are increasingly attractive for tourists. The value of the property in central areas has risen, and private individuals living or working in properties have sold them to investment companies, which have turned them into a tourist system. We became aware of this when we started to see city centers empty of real life. Mainly, the phenomenon was felt in the medium and small-sized towns. A city such as Florence, which had a population of 500 in the 50s, and which, according to the town planning law of 1962, expected to reach a population of 700,000 in these years, currently counts 350 residents. In other words, exactly half the figure forecast 50 years ago. The addition of an area to the World Heritage List has imparted a strong boost to this process. That was when we started shutting the stable door after our horses had bolted. My fifth consideration: what is the cause of all this? Does it depend on local authorities' lack of vision in addressing the issue? Does it depend on the length of time involved in any kind of planning vision? What is the cause of all this? In my experience, it is caused by the failure to see student fears. That it is a serious cultural shortcoming because it means people associate tourism with business, not tourism with emotions. In this unstoppably advent of globalization, our planet is fast heading towards a population of 10 billion. So we should never forget that our first great heritage in this world is peace. Peace among people, shared coexistence in a framework of respect for individual traditions and for one's own cultural heritage. On these pages, we have referred to facts that are substantially related to three UNESCO conventions: 1972 World Heritage Center, 203 for the safeguarding of the intangible cultural heritage, 205 on the protection and promotion of the diversity of cultural expressions, and to the International Cultural Tourism Charter, managing tourism at places of heritage significance, adopted by ICOMOS at the 12th General Assembly in Mexico, October 1999. In view of all the above, I propose to begin afresh, starting precisely with the terminology from the Grand Tour in the late 1819, passing through mass tourism, which its consumer-related services, which has created a vast organizational network in the world that can be appropriately used for other great goals to arrive to taking on board the opportunities, life, that exist beyond tourism, which are not tourism. To achieve this, I propose working carefully on local areas which need to become increasingly aware of their identity, as we have seen here in Sukhothai, an identity which is the child of the place in which they have lived for generations, and which they have to know better than others in order to be able to protect it and to explain it to others, to get others to appreciate it. So from the traveler standpoint, we need to start fresh from the travel agency or from whoever offers travel services with a question: are you interested in a trip based on consumer-related services, or are you looking for a trip based on value? From resident standpoint, we should ask residents: do you expect your business rise your standard of living and an evolution of social context where you live, or do you expect it to break in the environment you were born in, even eventually causing you to lose your place identity? This is why the model already operative heritage and landscape community life beyond tourism is designed to promote accurate knowledge and loyalty of one's own area before one can present it to visitors, whether personally or on the web, thus getting to know it and fostering mutual acquaintance among the various players in it. Heritage and landscape community life beyond tourism is the virtual international database .org, already operating for and with communities.net. In this international cultural platform and database, cities like Kyoto, Krakow, Tbilisi, and others, and various universities and institutions have given already their adhesion. This portal, this heritage and landscape community, is fit first through a survey conducted by young university students on the area's cultural institutions and businesses, starting in particular with the less well-known ones, with the construction of the cultural biography sector. Thus, travel becomes an opportunity for familiarizing with the difficulties involved in understanding cultural diversity. Thus, we see travel as an emotion becoming a tool for sensitization to respect for cultural diversity in a globalized world that is heading toward a population, as we say, of 10 million. Thus, the travel must be seen as fundraising for both the heritage, which is the reason of the trip, whether for institutions working for the same. Another point that we consider crucial is this. So in the mode of life, tourism heritage is not seen as an objective per se, but as a strategy for fostering intercultural dialogue. Thus, no longer in terms only of protection and enhancement of the heritage, but also in terms of its use and enjoyment for social purposes, for dialogue and respect for diversity. Thus, heritage as a tool for mankind, therefore ultimately heritage for peace in the world. The simplicities of this implies in combining the mentioned UNESCO Convention 72/203/205 and ICOMOS Charter 1999, when the conventions 203/205 are easier to associate with the target, while the 1972 Convention is easier to associate with the strategy for achieving the objectives mentioned, with the harmony of ICOMOS Charter for Intercultural Dialogue. That